Because of an accident, everyone believed I had hurt Tom's beloved. He didn't ask why, didn't care to hear my side of the story. With a cold and disdainful look, he cast me out from the city and sent me back to the countryside where I had grown up. I stayed there for 3 years. When the contract finally ended, Tom returned, standing before me with his usual arrogance, looking down at me as if I owed him the world. He extended his hand and said, "If you kneel and apologize to Rita, I'll forgive you." He really believed I'd still bend to his will, no matter how he treated me. But I just smiled coolly, raised my left hand to show him the ring, and gently took the hand of the man beside me. "I'm the wife of a commander now. Do you really think she deserves an apology?" The crowd around us grew silent, tension thick in the air. Tom stood at the edge of the field, surrounded by curious villagers. They hadn't come for peace, they came to mock, to see the orphan girl fall on her knees. "Maria, it's been 3 years," Tom said, his voice loud and clear. "Have you realized your mistake? Kneel, apologize to Rita, and I'll let you return." Behind me, the villagers sneered, their eyes full of ridicule. "Tom is too kind to her," someone muttered. "She's just an orphan taken in by his family. Hurting Rita must have been her way of getting attention." Tom puffed up with pride at their words, and I remained quiet, locking eyes with every one of them. They weren't entirely wrong. I had lived in the Ning household only because my father and Tom's father had been close friends. My father once saved Ning's father at the cost of his own life, and his dying wish was for someone to take care of me. With no place to go, I was brought into their home. But Tom had never cared about me. The moment he learned his father wanted him to marry me, his indifference turned into outright hatred. Then came the accident, and Rita was hurt. No one listened when I tried to explain. Tom didn't hesitate to cast me away, and for 3 years, I was alone in the countryside, labeled a disgrace. Yet now he was here again, demanding I kneel, as if those years meant nothing. Rita stood beside him, wearing a smile that was anything but kind. "Maria doesn't want to speak," she said in a soft voice that dripped with false compassion. "It's okay. I can bear a little injustice. After all, she's still part of your family." Tom snapped, his temper flaring. "My family? She's a parasite.
Her whole family is dead.
She's just been feeding off mine." His words pierced deep, but I didn't flinch. I wasn't the same girl he had once tossed aside. I met his eyes with calm resolve and replied, "I didn't do it. I won't confess to something I didn't do.
And I'm married now.
I'll never go back to the Ning family. You can all leave." Tom's expression faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered, sneering again. Someone in the crowd whispered mockingly, "She's lying. Probably married some creepy old man in the middle of nowhere." Laughter exploded all around. Annoyed, I turned away and picked up a sewing box nearby, ready to leave. But Tom stepped forward, grabbing a pair of shoes from the box. He measured them against his foot, then smirked. "These are my size. Don't tell me they aren't for me. You've been waiting for me, haven't you?" The villagers laughed louder. "She's obsessed with Tom. Even makes him shoes in secret." I yanked the shoes from his hands and said coldly, "These are for my husband, the general. Now that you've touched them, they're no longer clean." Without another glance, I walked away. Tom's voice rang out behind me, smug and arrogant. "If you're really married, then bring him here. Let's see if he exists." I paused for a moment. Unfortunately, David was away handling military affairs and couldn't come back yet. Rita stepped forward again, playing the role of the kind one. "Don't laugh at Maria. We all know she's always liked Tom. That's all this is." Tom glared at me with disdain. "My father's birthday banquet is soon. I don't know what spell you've cast on him, but he insists you come." I smirked. So that was the real reason he'd come looking for me. In the Ning family, the old man's word was law. Back then, I didn't understand that Tom only cared for me out of duty. I misunderstood everything, thinking his actions came from affection. I was wrong. It was my loneliness that led me to believe I loved him. But now I know better. Tom never cared. If not for the elder's command, he wouldn't have even looked at me. It was my foolish heart that made me believe in something that never existed. And in the end, it got me hurt by Rita and abandoned by the man I once trusted most. Maybe Tom already knew the truth, but his heart had always belonged to Rita. No matter how many injustices I had suffered, it seemed like she was the only one worthy of protection and sympathy. When she saw I remained silent, Rita stepped forward with a look of gentle understanding. "Then I'll apologize to Maria," she said softly. "It was just an accident that hurt me. The old master is still waiting for you, so you should go back." I hadn't even responded yet, but Tom immediately exploded. He stepped in front of Rita, glaring at me with suspicion. "Maria, how can you be so shameless? Whether you come back or not is your business, but I've already said all I needed to say." Watching the scene unfold before me, a cold smile crept onto my lips. Tom kept claiming to be my fiancé, yet here he was holding another woman in front of his supposed fiancé. In the past, I would have been heartbroken, maybe even furious. But now, I felt nothing. Tom had been completely erased from my heart. Seeing me unmoved, he began shouting at me. Others nearby joined in the mockery. "Don't worry, Tom," someone sneered. "She'll be on her knees begging soon enough." I said nothing. I simply tossed the half-finished shoes from the embroidery frame aside. I was disgusted by anything Tom had touched. I didn't want David wearing something he had laid hands on. As much as I despised Tom and everyone from the city, I couldn't deny that Elder Ning had once done me a great favor. If he hadn't sent someone to find me back then, I might have died alone on the streets. Regardless, it was his 70th birthday. I had to return. In truth, I could have left this place the moment I married David, but I wasn't ready. I hadn't yet found the strength to step into a new life. That fragile peace was shattered the moment Tom showed up, thinking that because I was married, I should bring David home with me. I called David, and he told me he had some things to take care of, but he would be there soon. I didn't go back with Tom, and by the time I arrived, the birthday celebration had already begun. Years ago, the Ning family had started a small business, and it flourished, earning fame in the region thanks to Elder Ning's good name. But in recent years, with Tom in charge, things had slowly declined. Chapter 2. When I reached the door of the house, I froze. Guests were arriving one after another with gifts in hand, and to my surprise, Rita was standing at the entrance next to Tom, greeting everyone. She looked as if she were the mistress of the house, and a bitter smile formed on my lips. Nearly everyone in the Ning family knew that Tom loved Rita, but there was no way the Ning family would ever accept her. Her profession was considered dishonorable. Rumor had it she was a dancer, though what she did behind closed doors was anyone's guess. In the 1980s, when thinking was still deeply conservative, a family like the Nings, with a century-old lineage, would never allow someone like her through their doors. Yet Rita stood boldly at the entrance, greeting guests as if she belonged, without even considering how the elder might react. When Tom saw me arrive alone, he smirked. "So you came after all? Couldn't stay away, could you? And where's your husband?" I looked at him expressionlessly. "What's the rush? He'll be here soon." Tom took a step forward, openly scanning me from head to toe. "Who are you trying to fool? I know your so-called husband is fake. You just want my attention." Then he raised his voice. "If you kneel and apologize to Rita now, I might forgive you. If not, I'll cancel our engagement." I laughed coldly. "Sorry, but I'm already married." "And hasn't that engagement already been broken?" Tom hadn't expected me to stand my ground. He'd assumed that the moment he offered forgiveness, I would crawl back. He had even extended his hand to me, but still, I didn't kneel. His face twisted with rage as he scoffed. "Fine, let's see if your so-called husband actually shows up today." I kept my face blank, unbothered. Tom tried to stop me from entering, but Elder Ning had already sent someone to welcome me. I walked in without resistance, watching as Rita's expression twisted for just a moment when she saw might was fleeting, but I caught it. Surrounded by fatty, oily food, I suddenly felt nauseous for no reason. I thought maybe I had eaten something off earlier, so I brushed it aside. The birthday celebration was just beginning, and the guest list was impressive. As soon as I entered, the elder spotted Meihei must have been waiting. His eyes lit up as he studied me, like a father gazing at his future daughter-in-law. And as expected, his next words were, "You've become even more beautiful after these 3 years. You and Tom aren't young anymore. When do you plan to marry? I'd love to hold my great-grandchild before I pass." His gaze was full of expectation, and Tom standing nearby looked visibly nervous. All eyes turned toward me. In the Ning household, the elder's word was law. If he spoke, no one dared object. I wanted to reject him immediately, but before I could speak, Tom suddenly stepped forward, unable to hold back any longer. He looked anxious, his voice trembling as he said, "Grandfather, I think I'm too young to get married. And besides, how could Maria possibly be worthy of marrying into our family?" The elder's expression darkened instantly. I had never imagined his own grandson would speak such disgraceful words. "You're all the same," he snapped. "The Ning family may have wealth, but you're far from noble. When did Tom become like this?" Slamming his cane to the ground, the elder roared, "You ungrateful brat! What are you saying? You're already 27, are you still a child? You've made Maria wait all these years, and now you want to throw her away?" Faced with the old man's fury, Tom grew timid for a moment. But behind him, Rita was watching with hope in her eyes. She couldn't bear to lose face in front of the woman he loved. Gritting his teeth, Tom declared, "I will never marry Maria." The celebration was about to fall into chaos, so I stood up and looked at the elder with sincerity. "Thank you for your kindness," I said softly. "If you hadn't taken me in back then, I might have died on the streets. But I cannot marry Tom because I'm already married." Under everyone's gaze, I raised my hand and revealed the ring on my finger. The elder's eyes widened immediately as he questioned, "Maria's married? Why didn't anyone inform me?" All eyes turned to Tom as the elder began scolding him, accusing him of negligence and betrayal. Tom could not swallow the humiliation, thought this was all part of my plan. Pressured from all sides to marry me, he lashed out with disdain, shoving me to the ground without hesitation. I didn't resist, I fell, covering my abdomen, pain flashing across my face. The crowd gasped in shock, some whispering, "She's holding her belly, could she be pregnant?" Chapter 3. Upon hearing that, Rita's eyes lit up with glee. Now everyone would think I wasn't truly married, and in any era, a single mother was always looked down upon. Suppressing her excitement, she approached with fake concern and extended a hand to help me up. "Maria, if you're pregnant, why didn't you say so? Even if the child's father isn't much, he's still the father, you should bring him here." Mocking laughter surrounded me. The pain clouded my mind, but instinctively, I kept my hand over my stomach. Even I couldn't believe it. Am I really pregnant? I suddenly needed to know for sure, so they rushed me to the hospital. But now that I had Elder Ning's protection, no one dared lay a finger on me. Still, waiting for the doctor's results was nerve-wracking. To say I wasn't nervous would be a lie. "You're pregnant 3 months along," the doctor announced. From that moment, I couldn't hear anything else. I froze, my hand resting gently on my belly, a faint smile forming on my lips. "I'm pregnant. I'm having David's child." But, to the side, Tom's expression twisted the moment he heard the news. He stormed forward, grabbing my neck with his large hand, glaring at me with fury. "Tell me, who's the bastard in your womb?" I stared back without flinching. "Why do you care whose child I carry?" My calm only enraged him further. He grabbed my chin, his grip bruising. "Aren't you ashamed? You were my fiancé, and now this." But I wasn't one to be trampled. I bit his hand hard, and he howled in pain, releasing me. I tried to run, but he was quick. He seized me again, his eyes wild. "That bastard child in your belly, it needs to be aborted." He dragged me forcefully. Desperate to protect my baby, I shouted, "Do you even know who my husband is? Do you know who the father is?" Tom scoffed, "Just some adulterer. If he dares to show up, I'll make him regret it." His grip tightened and panic surged in me. I couldn't let him hurt my child. Just then, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "I'd like to see who dares lay a hand on my wife." Tom didn't even have time to turn around before he was kicked hard, falling to the ground in a pitiful heap. And in the next instant, I collapsed into a familiar embrace. All the grief and injustice I had buried burst forth. Clinging to David, I broke down, my fingers clutching the front of his shirt. "I almost couldn't protect our child," I whispered. Seeing me in such a state, David's face darkened with sorrow and guilt. He had only been delayed by work, arriving just a moment too late. He hadn't expected that the woman he loved would be treated like this. "Tom," still sprawled on the ground, tried to curse, but when he looked up and saw who stood before him, the words died in his throat. His face turned pale with disbelief. "Mal, how are you here?" he stammered. David's expression was stone cold. "If I hadn't come," he said slowly, "what exactly were you planning to do to my wife?" Tom froze, unable to speak. He stared at David in shock, clearly realizing something, yet unwilling to accept it. His fists clenched tightly, knuckles white from the pressure. She wanted to hear words of denial from David's own mouth, wanted him to say there was nothing between us. But in the end, she didn't get what she wished for. In front of everyone, David gently laced his fingers with mine, and on our hands were matching wedding rings. "Do I really need to explain anything?" he said calmly. "Maria is my wife." A wave of shock rippled through the crowd. People murmured, disbelief etched on their faces. Some couldn't wrap their heads around the fact that I was truly married. But a few had already recognized David's identity and they were completely stunned. Elder Ning had once served in the army, and years ago, David had visited the Ning household on behalf of the military as a formal guest. Of course, Tom knew who David was. He was the youngest commander in the military. Even Tom's elderly father had to show him respect. A man of that stature held real power, and Tom knew deep down that he could never compare. Every time he had seen David before, he kept his distance with cautious politeness. But he had never imagined that this same man was the husband I had spoken of. Tom stood frozen, unsure of what to feel. His first reaction was denial. A twisted, almost pathetic smile curled on his lips. "Commander Mao, this must be some kind of joke. Maria's been in the countryside for 3 years. How could she possibly have met you? Don't be fooled by her." David glanced at Tom with growing irritation, starting to doubt whether Tom was even in his right mind. Could a man really mistake his own wife? But the memory of what had happened just moments ago stirred anger in David's heart. He had failed to protect me, and in his absence, Tom had dared to lay hands on me. Sensing David's fury, a cold sweat trickled down Tom's back. The others might not have known, but he understood all too well what it meant to provoke the Mao family. He was trembling. When he saw me sewing before, when he recognized David's clothes, he suddenly pieced it all together. In shock, he blurted out, "So those shoes really weren't for me, and your lover is David, and that bastard child in your belly is his too?" Hearing those words, David turned sharply toward me, his expression tightening. "Lover? Bastard?" His confusion was clear. Didn't know. I hadn't told him I was pregnant. I had only found out today that I was carrying his child. Resting in his arms, I looked up at him with trust in my eyes. "I have something wonderful to tell you. We're going to have a baby." David's face changed instantly. His eyes lit up with pure joy as he placed a protective hand over my stomach. "A baby? We're really going to have a child," he whispered, overwhelmed. The way we stood there, embracing like a loving couple, left Tom completely dazed. He stumbled backward, refusing to accept the truth unraveling before him. In that moment, I was so wrapped in happiness that I nearly forgot the pain Tom had caused me earlier. But David hadn't forgotten. The image of me being shoved and humiliated still burned in his mind. Tom hadn't just hurt his wifey, had tried to hurt his child. That was unforgivable. David glared at Tom with an intensity that made everyone hold their breath. "How dare you harm my child?" he said through clenched teeth. Chapter 4. The look on Tom's face was indescribable. Just moments ago, he had still believed I loved him, that everything I did revolved around him. He believed I would always follow his lead, that I belonged to him. So how could everything have changed? Not only did I no longer love him, I had married someone else, and was even carrying that man's child. None of it fit into the version of the world he had in his head. In his mind, I should have been on my knees, begging for his forgiveness, waiting for him to grant me a crumb of mercy. But now, the reality was something he couldn't accept. A strange panic gripped him. His eyes drifted to our hands, David's and mine intertwined. It was blinding. Those hands were supposed to be his. We had been engaged. All he asked was for me to wait in the countryside for 3 years. How had everything changed the moment I returned? Too many people were watching. I didn't want to make a scene, so I gently patted David's hand, signaling that we should leave. David understood immediately. He looked at me with quiet tenderness, willing to follow whatever I said. As we walked away together, Rita, who had been silent all this time, had a twisted expression on her face. No one had believed what I said before. But it was all true. I was married. And the man I had married was none other than the youngest general. Even those who didn't know David personally could see from his military rank and demeanor that he was leagues above Tom. In the crowd, some were jealous. Others were in awe. No one could have imagined that after being sent away in disgrace, I would return with someone so extraordinary. But their envy didn't change reality. Since David found out I was pregnant, he had insisted on bringing me home. From the moment I arrived at the Mao residence, I was welcomed with open arms. David's mother treated me like her own daughter, looking after every detail of my well-being. And when David's father heard he was going to be a grandfather, he was so proud he couldn't stop boasting to his old comrades. These days, I didn't have to lift a finger. No matter what I needed, there was always someone there to help. The Mao family treated me like I was a national treasure, afraid that even the wind might harm me. Watching David fuss over me with so much care, I couldn't help but smile through tears. Deep down, I felt a quiet, indescribable sense of peace and fulfillment. Ever since I lost my parents, I hadn't felt this kind of warmth in a long time. This is what it feels like to have a real family. I was truly moved. And in my heart, I knew I hadn't married the wrong man. My encounter with David had been pure coincidence. He was chasing a criminal, and during the pursuit, he got injured. I stumbled upon him by chance and took care of him for several days. His wounds hadn't fully healed when he quietly disappeared one dawn. I thought that would be the last time we'd ever meet, that our paths would never cross again. But fate had other plans. The next time I saw him, he was the one saving me. I had come to the countryside alone, young and beautiful. The single men in the village saw me as easy prey, and many had already set their sights on me. One person couldn't possibly fight off four. They dragged me to the fields, and when I realized what they planned to do, I was ready to end my life right then and there to protect my dignity. But just as I was about to give up, the filthy man pressing down on me suddenly flew into the air. In the blink of an eye, all of them were writhing on the ground, groaning in pain. David stood before me like a god descending from the heavens. The last of those thugs ended up in prison. I knew who David was, and I thought he'd soon return to his world. But to my surprise, he stayed in the village. Only later did I learn that he had taken leave, something he hadn't done in years, just so he could see me again. He said he came to recover, but in truth, he stayed to be near me. Under his gentle care, I found myself falling in love with him, slowly but surely. Ours wasn't love at first sight. It was love that quietly grew with time. At first, he spent a lot of time by my side. But eventually, duty called him back to the army, and the time we spent together grew shorter and shorter. Still, our feelings never faded. In fact, they only deepened. In the end, David was the one who confessed first. From that moment on, everything moved quickly. It was like he was afraid I might disappear, but by then, I had already made up my mind. I knew I needed support. And in this life, I had chosen David, so I didn't hesitate to marry him. Considering his status, I didn't want to make it public, nor did we hold a grand ceremony. We only registered the marriage. Until today, no one had known about our relationship. These days, David had been staying home to care for me. But this morning, someone came looking for him. They leaned in and whispered something in his ear, and he turned to me with a soft smile. "I have a few things to take care of. Stay home and don't worry about anything," he said gently. I knew David handled important matters. I could never expect him to stay by my side all the time. Besides, the way he cared for me was already more than enough, even tried to feed me himself. I wasn't bothered that he had to step away. Watching him walk off, I began to calm down little by little. But as I reflected on everything that had happened today, a chill ran through me. I never expected Tom to treat me the way he did upon my return to the Ning family, to the point of nearly causing me to lose my child. The resentment I thought I had buried began to resurface. This child growing inside me almost died because of him. He had hurt me so many times, I couldn't allow him to hurt my child too. In the beginning, he cast me aside without even questioning what really happened. Of course, there had been bitterness in my heart. But as I got to know David, I slowly began to see things clearly. Maybe all of this was destiny. If Tom hadn't cast me away, I might never have met David. I might never have known what it felt like to be truly loved. If this was fate, then perhaps Tom had once been the thread that led me to happiness. But now I no longer cared. From today on, Tom and I had nothing to do with each other. Chapter 5. Ever since the Mao family learned I was pregnant, they began preparing for the wedding. But since I was already 3 months along, they wanted to be extra cautious. The wedding would be postponed, but the joy was unmistakable. The Mao family treated me like a queen, eager to show the world that I was their daughter-in-law. In the past few days, countless people had come to visit, most of them strangers to me. Yet Father Mao beamed with pride, bragging to his old comrades that he would be the first among them to become a grandfather. And among the visitors, to my surprise, was Tom. Of course, he wasn't allowed inside. He came with Elder Ning. No one had expected that an orphan like me, with no parents, could end up marrying someone like David. David was a model of excellence among his peers. Everyone who spoke of him did so with admiration. When I saw Elder Ning, I greeted him with deep respect. He sighed as he looked at me and said, "It's just that the Ning family lacks luck. But seeing you, well, now I am relieved." I spoke with Elder Ning for a while, completely ignoring Tom. He didn't say a word, but something about him didn't feel right. I didn't realize it until later. As I held my stomach and prepared to head upstairs, Tom suddenly grabbed my hand. His eyes locked onto mine with a strange, piercing intensity, as if he wanted to burn a hole through me. His grip tightened painfully around my wrist, and I turned to him, my patience wearing thin. "What are you trying to do?" Tom muttered through clenched teeth, each word laced with rage. "Do you have any idea how much humiliation you've caused me? Everyone knows now that my fiancé cheated on me because of you." A cold smile curled at the corners of my lips as I looked at him with disdain.
Fiancé?
"Funny. I don't recall you ever once admitting I was your fiancé." Tom was momentarily stunned, but quickly regained his composure. He glared at me. "It doesn't matter. You're the unfaithful one. You betrayed me first." I never thought Tom could be this shameless. And yet, here he was, accusing me of betrayal. I pushed him away firmly and met his eyes with icy resolve. "And what exactly have you been doing all this time with Rita?" I didn't expect Tom to get angry instead. He grinned smugly, his tone filled with twisted confidence. "I knew it. Everything you're doing is just to get my attention. You care about what I think. I'm not involved with Rita. If you're willing to abort, I'll let you come back to me." I had never met anyone so disgustingly shameless. I stopped wasting my breath and turned to leave. But Tom wasn't done. He grabbed me again. Being pregnant, my body was weak, and I felt myself losing balance as he tried to drag me down the stairs. I could hear the horrified screams around me. But before anything could happen, I fell into a familiar, strong embrace. The next moment, Tom was struck down and slammed to the ground, blood instantly pouring from his mouth. Chaos erupted. No one had expected such a violent scene. Father Mao and Mother Mao rushed to my side. Almost everyone had seen what had happened. Tom had approached to harass me, a pregnant woman, and had even tried to drag me by force at the top of the stairs. David's gaze was terrifying. He had already forgiven Tom once but never imagined he would dare attack me again, and this time in front of everyone.
Get lost.
"I don't want to see you ever again. If I do, I won't let you go a second time." For a moment, Tom's face twisted with rage and shame, but he knew he couldn't win against David. He staggered to his feet and hurried away without another word. Even Elder Ning looked uncomfortable. He had brought his grandson hoping to reconcile things, but instead, it had turned into a scandal. He quickly apologized to me. I couldn't let an elder like him bow his head for something that wasn't his fault. From the very beginning, I had only blamed Tom. The elder had been kind to Meihei, was the first to show me concern when I was sent to the countryside. But he was old now, and there were things he simply couldn't control. From today onward, my ties with the Ning family were completely severed. After everything that happened, David wished more than anything that he could beat Tom to a pulp. He couldn't believe how shameless Tom had become, still trying to harass me, even though I was his wife. But because of David's profession, He couldn't act recklessly. Even if his anger burned inside him, he had no choice but to suppress it. After all, Tom had almost destroyed both his wife and his child. How could he not care? But he swallowed his fury for my sake. Our baby was now stabilizing, and David was caught up in wedding preparations. I let out a breath of relief. I didn't want David to face consequences because of me. While I was still recovering at home, I heard some shocking news. The always sweet, generous Rita had drugged Tom and they were both arrested on the spot by the anti-vice unit. Rita tried to explain they were lovers, but Tom was unconscious, and the police didn't buy a word of it. Without hesitation, they took her away, making the situation even worse. Rita begged desperately not to go to jail. To save her, Tom was forced to admit their relationship. The news that they were caught soliciting on the streets spread like wildfire and became a laughingstock. Elder Ning was furious. He declared that as long as he was alive, he would never allow someone like Rita disgrace to the Familito marry into the Ning household. Everyone thought Tom would marry Rita, but surprisingly, he said nothing about it. In fact, he began to distance himself from her. But Rita wasn't the type to give up easily. She had worked too hard to get where she was. Now, she clung to Tom obsessively, a far cry from her elegant, gentle image. And Tom finally realized he'd been deceived. He had the looks, the status, and was well-liked by the elders, and yet, he had chosen Rita, someone despised by everyone. The more he learned about Rita, the more he couldn't help but investigate what had really happened that year. That's when he discovered the truth. It had all been Rita's doing. The so-called accident had been her own self-inflicted trap. It had nothing to do with me. Lately, Tom had become completely obsessed, haunted by regrets, replaying everything over and over in his mind. If only he had chosen to trust me back then, maybe things would be different now. Maybe I would still be with him, and the child I carried would be his. It was only now, too late, that he finally understood his feelings for me. Without even realizing it, he had already fallen in love with me a long time ago. He had been completely influenced by the shallow friends around him. Everyone said I wasn't worthy of him, and even he began to believe it. So he ignored my feelings entirely and ridiculously found himself a mistress. They allowed that woman to slander me, hurt me, and banish me to the countryside for 3 long years. But 3 years they're enough to change many things, including how I felt about him. Maybe in the beginning, my feelings were real. But time changes everything. Chapter 6. Tom, consumed by these thoughts, began to lose his grip on reality. When he found out I was getting married, he couldn't sit still. Darkness swelled in his heart, and he devised something twisted. On the day of the wedding, I was nervous but happy until a knock sounded at the door. I instinctively turned, and in the next moment, everything went black. When I came to, I found myself lying in a barren wasteland, my hands and feet tightly bound.
Terror surged through my body.
The last thing I remembered was the stench of some drug in the air, and then everything went dark. I'd been kidnapped. But who would dare kidnap me? And then a familiar figure appeared. I froze in disbelief. It was Tom. The person who had abducted me was Tom. Forcing myself to remain calm, I looked him in the eye. He must have a purpose. Maybe he wanted money.
I tried to keep my voice steady.
Tom, do you even know what you're doing?
This is kidnapping.
It's a crime. But instead of responding rationally, Tom snapped. His bloodshot eyes locked onto mine, blazing with madness. This is all your fault. You used to like me. Did that change? I can't accept it. I won't. I couldn't understand the twisted logic. He was the one who threw me away, who humiliated me, who abandoned me. And now he was acting like I was the one who broke his heart. I didn't speak. I knew nothing I said would matter. But my silence only pushed him further off the edge. He grabbed my chin hard, his voice a growl.
Say it. Say you love me.
Say I'm the one you care about, or I'll make you lose that child. When I saw the steel pipe in his hand, panic surged through every cell in my body. He had gone completely insane. He wanted to force me to abort my baby. I was terrified. No one was coming. I was all alone. Seeing me remain silent, Tom grew even more desperate. I know you blame me. I didn't mean to send you to the countryside. It was all Rita. She lied to me. Now I know none of it was your fault. As he spoke, he dragged someone from the shadows. That person was covered in blood, motionless. I couldn't tell if she was alive or dead. But I recognized her instantly. Rita. I never imagined Tom would change so drastically. He was beating her viciously in front of me, muttering about how he was avenging me. But it didn't feel like revenge. It felt horrifying. Rita lay on the floor, limp and lifeless. I didn't even know if she was still breathing. And then, Tom turned his gaze back to me. My blood ran cold. "Tell me," he growled. "Tell me I'm the one you love. Tell me it's me." His hands tightened around my neck. I was suffocating. I thought I was going to die. And then bang! A deafening sound shattered the silence. I don't remember what happened next. When I opened my eyes again, I was in the hospital. David had found me first. He led the rescue operation himself. Tom had been shot in the arm and sentenced to 20 years in prison. As for Rita, she was left half paralyzed and would spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. Just months ago, the two had claimed they would love each other to the grave. And now they were enemies, tearing each other apart. But none of that mattered to me anymore. After the kidnapping, David never allowed me to have any contact with the Ning family again. Our wedding still went ahead, and in March the following year, I gave birth to David's child. And from that moment on, we began a new life. One filled with peace. One where we would be happy for the rest of our days.